surprise because as America embarks on its America First foreign policy, a lot of non-Americans are feeling, well, kind of unwelcome. In fact, dozens of countries have.
Donald Trump's entire shtick as president is that America is being ripped off by foreigners, and we're kicking people out, not letting people in. Heck, we've canceled the visas of more than 1,000 foreign students in U.S. colleges.
What happens when the country famous for building walls suddenly finds itself surrounded by locked doors? For years, the United States told the world who could come in and who couldn't. It issued bans. It built fences. It deported families. It declared entire regions as threats. But what if the world decided to return the favor? Well, Trump just created the conditions for the world to take revenge. That's no longer a hypothetical. It's 2025, and the unthinkable has happened. 10 powerful countries, some of America's closest friends and biggest trade partners, have quietly begun to shut their borders to the U.S. The Trump administration's aggressive policies, especially the new 12-nation travel ban signed in secrecy, have triggered a global backlash like never before. But this time, the world isn't protesting. It's simply turning away. No headlines, no press conferences. Just a steady withdrawal of tourists, of business, of trust. So what really happened? Who banned whom? And why is it costing America billions in silence? In this video, let's break it down. Number 10. Australia. It didn't start with headlines. It started with hesitation. Quiet conversations around kitchen tables in Sydney and Melbourne. Travel agents noticing sudden cancellations. Families postponing their long-planned vacations to Disneyland. What used to be a childhood rite of passage, the dream trip to America, suddenly became a question mark. By February 2025, the Australian government issued not one, not two, but 3 separate travel advisories for citizens visiting the United States. The reasons? Rising reports of unjustified detentions at airports, racial profiling, and security threats that appeared to go unacknowledged by U.S. officials. Suddenly, families heading to Los Angeles or Orlando weren't thinking about theme parks. They were thinking about airport pat-downs, tense customs interactions, and a growing sense of being unwelcome. Australian media fueled the concern. News stories about tourists held for hours, phones searched without consent, and denied entry despite valid documents dominated the airwaves. Parents didn't want to risk their kids being traumatized. Couples looked to safer, friendlier destinations. Even business travelers started rerouting flights through Singapore and London, bypassing American soil entirely. Tourism data confirmed the shift that 20% fewer Australian arrivals, wiping out hundreds of millions in expected tourist spending. In Orlando, hotel chains that once catered to Australian families began reducing staff. Gift shops near Santa Monica Pier slashed hours. Rental car companies reported a sudden silence from their once loyal Aussie customers. For a country like Australia, whose citizens typically saw the U.S. as a cultural sibling, this was more than an economic decision. It was emotional. It felt like watching a best friend change. A friend who once stood for freedom and fun now felt like a fortress with suspicion behind every door. And as one travel agency in Brisbane boldly advertised in April 2025, "Why risk LA? Choose Lisbon." That slogan said it all. Number 9. Canada. This one didn't feel like rejection. It felt like heartbreak. Canada isn't just a neighbor. It's been America's closest partner, sharing one of the longest undefended borders in the world. Families on both sides have roots, memories, and businesses that cross invisible lines. But in 2025, something snapped, and it happened quietly. The Trump administration's renewed immigration restrictions, including targeted visa slowdowns and increased scrutiny at the border, sparked a 35% decline in Canadian tourist arrivals in just the first 3 months of the year. There were no dramatic protests, no loud diplomatic fallout, just an eerie, almost mournful absence. Florida, usually flooded with Canadian snowbirds escaping the winter cold, looked like a ghost town. Seasonal renters canceled long-term leases. RV parks in places like Sarasota and Fort Lauderdale sat half-empty. Grocery stores that once stocked Canadian goods like maple syrup, Tim Hortons coffee reported a sharp drop in sales. In New York and Michigan, border towns that depended on Canadian foot traffic began to crumble. The economic damage was instant. $700 million in losses, according to tourism industry estimates, and that was just Q1. And it wasn't just dollars lost, it was trust. Canadians no longer felt welcome. Reports circulated of travelers being questioned for hours about their political views, vaccine records, or the reasons for their visits. Even longtime dual citizens began voicing fears about crossing into a country that suddenly felt foreign. The ripple effects have reached beyond tourism. Real estate investors from Toronto began pulling out of Florida condo deals. Students considering U.S. universities started looking to Europe instead. And Canadian tech firms, once proud to host conferences in San Francisco or Austin, have begun moving those events to Montreal or Berlin. Number 8. Germany. It began not with a boycott, but with a question. Is it even worth going anymore? In early 2025, German media outlets were flooded with disturbing stories. Tourists detained for hours at U.S. airports. Students asked inappropriate questions at immigration counters. Elderly travelers stranded without translators. It wasn't just a glitch. It became a pattern. A 20-year-old from Hamburg was reportedly held for 11 hours at JFK without explanation, water, or access to an interpreter. His crime? A visa that was perfectly legal but scrutinized because of a suspicious last name. This was not just news. It was a scandal. German tabloids and broadsheets alike began running headlines like, "Airport of Fear: Why America is no longer a dream destination." TV panels debated whether America had lost its soul. Influencers canceled U.S. trips. Travel agencies redirected holiday packages to Spain, Greece, and even Morocco. The image of America, once a shining land of Broadway lights, road trips, and endless summers, began to flicker and dim. Tourism numbers confirmed the shift. A 30% decline in German arrivals, especially in hotspots like New York, Florida, and Las Vegas. Tour buses parked idle. Luxury stores in Manhattan saw their German clientele vanish. German was no longer being heard on the crowded sidewalks of Times Square or in the queue at the Empire State Building. And that silence? It was telling. Worse still, the damage seeped into business. Executives from Munich and Frankfurt, once regulars at U.S. tech expos, began attending Asian and European alternatives. German SMEs canceled partnerships, citing unstable diplomatic tones and unwelcoming entry procedures. The tipping point was psychological. When Germans began to feel like suspects, not tourists, at the border, the magic was lost. A middle-aged mother from Dusseldorf put it best in an RTL interview. "My son wanted to see NASA, but I'm not risking my family's dignity for a vacation." Number 7. Japan. The U.S.-Japan relationship once felt unshakable. Shared tech ventures, academic exchanges, and joint ventures in AI and robotics. The connection was strong, strategic, and deeply cultural. But in 2025, it began to quietly unravel, not through protest or outrage, but through silent withdrawal. Japanese airlines reported massive declines in bookings to U.S. cities. ANA and JAL slashed flights to Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Seattle. In Tokyo, high schools that once proudly sent top students to Stanford or MIT began steering them toward Singapore, Seoul, and London. The Ministry of Education suspended several student exchange programs, citing security inconsistencies and lack of educational reciprocity. Then came the economic blow. a major Tokyo-based semiconductor firm, previously headquartered in San Jose, quietly announced a relocation to Berlin, citing logistical and legal uncertainties in the U.S. business climate. This was not a bluff, it was a blueprint. Other Japanese firms began reassessing their U.S. operations, shifting focus to the EU and ASEAN markets. And culturally, the Japanese public simply tuned out. U.S. entertainment, once wildly popular, began losing steam. Netflix shows dropped from trending lists. American concerts in Tokyo saw dwindling attendance. Instead, Japanese consumers turned inward, celebrating their own innovation and looking outward to friendlier horizons. It was not anger that drove Japan away. It was a disappointment. Japan, as a culture, values honor and mutual respect. The moment America became an unpredictable partner, with bans, tariffs, and public humiliation at airports, the relationship cooled. Number 6. South Korea. For decades, South Koreans saw America as more than a travel destination. It was a rite of passage. Honeymooners flocked to Hawaii. Families bonded over shopping trips to Los Angeles and Las Vegas. Students idolized Harvard and Berkeley. From Hollywood to Harvard, the U.S. was seen as the gold standard. But everything changed after Trump's tariff wars flared back up in early 2025. What began as an economic decision quickly spiraled into something cultural. Travel agencies in Seoul reported a sharp drop in U.S. bookings, with clients citing anxiety about treatment and tense diplomatic tone. Holiday plans started getting postponed, then canceled altogether. South Korean parents, once eager to send their kids on educational summer programs in California, began to hesitate. Not because of cost, but fear. Fear of being pulled aside at immigration. Fear of cultural disrespect. Fear of being unwelcome in a country they had once admired. The effect on tourism was severe. Buffets and shops that once catered specifically to Korean tourists, particularly in places like Irvine, Las Vegas, and Anaheim, began shutting down sections. Staff were reassigned. Korean language signage was quietly taken down. In some cases, entire Korean tour packages were discontinued. Even Korean business delegations started to shift gears. In 2025 alone, 3 major corporate retreats originally planned for Florida were moved to Vietnam and Dubai. A Samsung-backed research initiative scheduled in San Francisco was rerouted to Singapore. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel. To watch more videos on the latest news stories on geopolitics, economics, and current affairs impacting your lives. Number 5. Mexico. If any breakup feels personal, it's this one. The U.S. and Mexico have always had a relationship defined by proximity and paradox. Family, trade, and tourism flowed both ways, even when politics strained the surface. But by early 2025, something changed. It wasn't just about walls anymore. It was about dignity. Mexican citizens began reporting increased profiling and intense scrutiny at U.S. border entries and airports. What used to be a simple summer trip to El Paso or San Diego turned into hours of questioning. Mexican nationals with valid tourist visas were detained, searched, and in some cases, denied entry without cause. The emotional toll was massive. A family from Monterrey who had visited Texas every July for 17 years canceled their 2025 trip for the first time. Not because they didn't have the money, not because they didn't want to shop or visit family, but because, in the words of the father, we don't want to be treated like criminals for spending money. Tourism from Mexico, especially to Texas, Arizona, California, and New Mexico, fell dramatically. Border towns that once thrived on weekend shoppers began to feel hollow. Outlet malls, diners, and gas stations stood eerily quiet. A $1.2 billion drop in cross-border spending, was recorded in the first half of the year alone. More than economics, though, was the collapse of affection. Mexico didn't need a diplomatic scandal to walk away. It just needed to feel unwanted, and that's exactly what happened. The irony? While Trump celebrates the reduction in foreign traffic, it's local economies in the U.S. Southwest, historically Republican strongholds, that are suffering the most. Number 4. The Netherlands. Few countries admired American innovation and culture like the Dutch. From the canals of Amsterdam to the classrooms of Rotterdam, the U.S. was seen as the land of possibility. Dutch students aimed for Stanford. Retirees sought sunshine in Sarasota. Entrepreneurs flew to Silicon Valley with dreams in hand. Not anymore. As of mid-2025, Dutch travel to the U.S. has declined by over 28%, according to European tourism boards. Airlines have slashed flights. Dutch influencers have openly criticized the U.S. for unnecessary hostility at borders and inconsistent treatment of tourists. Universities have noticed too. In 2024, American colleges were among the top 3 choices for Dutch international students. In 2025, they slipped to number 6, behind Canada, the UK, and even Ireland. Scholarships were rejected. Exchange programs went unfilled. Young people now see Canada as a friendlier, more reliable option for study and opportunity. In Florida, entire retirement communities once filled with Dutch seasonal visitors now have rows of vacant homes. Property managers struggle to rent out furnished apartments. Even Dutch supermarkets, designed to serve long-staying European tourists, report up to a 40% drop in sales. But the shift wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. It came not through protest or petition, but through subtle decisions made over dinner tables across the Netherlands. Let's skip America this year. Let's wait until it calms down. Let's not take the risk. And just like that, a generation of Dutch citizens who once saw the U.S. as magical began to look elsewhere. Number 3. Sweden. Sweden used to admire the United States from afar, not just as a land of opportunity, but as a cultural force. Students fought for Fulbright scholarships. Backpackers saved up for New York. Tech startups in Stockholm dreamed of a San Francisco expansion. But in 2025, that starry-eyed admiration has faded into something colder: suspicion, doubt, and retreat. A nationwide survey by a major Swedish research institute revealed something dramatic. A majority of Swedes now view the U.S. as unstable, unsafe, and unwelcoming. That wasn't the case 5 years ago. What changed? Word-of-mouth horror stories. A student was detained for 6 hours at Chicago O'Hare because of a visa typo. A single mother was interrogated at JFK for visiting her brother in Queens. A tech developer asked if he had any plans to protest while entering the country for a conference. The data followed quickly. Bookings dropped 30% by March. Airlines rerouted planes. Hotels reported the sharpest drop in Swedish visitors since 2001. Even Swedish influencers, who once treated Times Square and Miami Beach like their second home, are now promoting Lisbon, Tokyo, and Cape Town instead. For many working-class Americans, especially in states like Texas and California, this decline isn't abstract. It's crushing. A Swedish tour group that once booked 10 rooms per month at a San Antonio inn vanished. The hotel owner laid off 2 receptionists. A rideshare driver in San Jose, once fluent in phrases like "Välkommen" and "Tack så mycket," now drives part-time and caters on weekends. An Austin cook who used to serve Swedish diners has seen his tips shrink to coins. Number 2. Denmark. The Danish-American relationship used to be charmingly strong, marked by shared values, liberal ideals, and economic trade. But when Trump, in one of his more bizarre geopolitical moves, suggested buying Greenland, the Danish people didn't just roll their eyes. They remembered it. Since then, Denmark has become diplomatically distant. And now, in 2025, travel statistics reveal the fallout. The number of Danish visitors to the US has plummeted 34%. Flights to cities like Chicago, San Francisco, and Boston, once regular routes for Danish professionals and students, are now half full. Airlines are quietly reducing schedules. Even worse, American brands are suffering. From Apple stores in Copenhagen to Nike outlets in Aarhus, US product sales have dipped sharply as Danes adopt a vote with your wallet strategy. The whispers are all the same. Why support a country that disrespects us? In elite hotels across the US, the absence is devastating. Danes, once known for their long-haul stays, high-end spending, and cultural curiosity, have evaporated. In New York, concierge at five-star hotels noticed the pattern by February. We used to have at least 20 Danish families during the school breaks. Now, 0, one manager confessed. But this isn't just about geopolitics. It's about tone. About the fact that Danes, proud, educated, and famously egalitarian, feel no urge to visit a country where they might be treated as inferior, suspicious, or just plain unwelcome. And perhaps more than any other country in Scandinavia, Denmark has mastered the art of quiet punishment. They didn't boycott, they didn't hold rallies, they simply left. Number 1. France. If any nation feels betrayed by what America has become, it's France. The bond was once deep. From Lafayette in the Revolution to baguettes in Brooklyn, French culture and American idealism fed off each other. France gave America philosophy, fashion, and flair. America gave France jazz, cinema, and Silicon Valley. It was a mutually flattering romance that lasted generations. But in 2025, the love affair is over. It wasn't one big event. It was death by 1,000 small humiliations. A French family held at Miami International for unexplained document review. A fashion student strip-searched at JFK. A chef from Marseille turned back because he had once visited Lebanon. Social media exploded with complaints. Not angry ones, but disappointed ones. Videos titled, "Why I'm Not Going Back to the US," began trending in Paris. Travel agencies started offering US refunds without penalty. American coffee chains in France saw foot traffic decline. Even museums in Washington, D.C. reported fewer French tour groups. Tourism dropped sharply. French visitors to California, New York, and Florida, the 3 favorite French destinations, fell by more than 40% in just 4 months. Cafes in Los Angeles, once filled with Parisian tourists, are now quiet. French voices once heard in Times Square or Disney World are gone. What do you think? Will America ever be seen as welcoming again? Or has Trump just done the unthinkable, turning the land of opportunity into the land of no entry? In the comment section below, share your thoughts on whether more countries can impose a travel ban on the United States, making Trump reverse his deportation policy. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring the latest news stories on geopolitics, economics, changing world order, and current affairs. Things you need to stay informed. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.